Raikan Topaini is for Thai drama lovers only. Sawadee and welcome to Axelle's Guide to Thai Dramas. I'm Axelle, and the Thai drama we're talking about today is finally Burnout Syndrome. So, full discretion, I hadn't planned on filming this episode today. The show ended yesterday. I have so many thoughts, a lot of which are mostly negative. I know it's going to be a shocker. And I feel like I need to put it all out and kind of move on. A little disclaimer before we start. I am a huge Afghan fan. I have been an Afghan fan forever and ever for like over, I think it's gonna be 8 years this year. So as you can see, I have Nong Baby right here and the Afghan light stick here. I have been to all of their concerts that I've been able to go to since I moved to Thailand. I have been to their fan meets. Literally last weekend, I was at Of Jumpun's birthday gathering for the second time. I am an Afghan stan. I love them so much. They are the only pairing at GMMTV and in the Thai drama fandom that I remotely care about. So I wanted to say that because I know a lot of you are going to think me biased, but I actually think that me being an Afghan stan makes it so I'm even harsher on their shows at points because I think they deserve the best shows only, and I think they're amazing. So you will see I am very critical of this show, and I really want to say that it's because I know this show had so much incredible potential, some of it which it actually managed to realize within the show, and I'll talk about the good points for sure, but a lot of which for me was wasted, which makes me feel very sad. So this is going to be an incredibly long video. Don't even look at the time, okay? It's going to be insanely long. You can put it in 2x speed. You can watch it in 5 different sittings. That's okay. Or not watch it at all. That's also okay. But I just need to put it all out there. And I'm probably even going to forget points that I wanted to talk about, and maybe I will pop up as editing Axelle if I have the time and the will to add even more things. So we shall see. Let's get into it. It's gonna be very, very long. Let's go on to the first impression. So my first impression, like every GMMTV show, was at the GMMTV lineup. I was extremely excited, but from the get-go, I had my reservations. I was extremely excited because I love Afghan. I'm excited for any Afghan show, but especially because I saw that this was directed by Pinucci, who directed Not Me. If you don't know Not Me, I'll go on very briefly about Not Me. Not Me is not only my favorite Thai BL or Thai drama ever made, it's my favorite piece of media, period. In the whole wide world that I saw in my 26 years of living on this earth, it's my favorite. I literally made it my master's degree thesis on the political art of Not Me. So, obviously I was so excited to see Pinucci work with Afghan again. And then I later learned that it's even, the original story is written by G. Terrain, who made my second favorite Afghan show and one of my favorite BLs of all time, Theory of Love. So for me, this was kind of an Avenger assemble moment where I have the director from Not Me, the writer from Theory of Love, and my favorite couple of all time, Afghan, all together. But my reservations stemmed from the love triangle, which we'll talk about more in a minute. I am an Of Jumpun stan, and I think this man is very overlooked, unfortunately. You can see a huge discrepancy in attention and especially followers between him and Gun. And it's no doubt that Gun is the favorite in the Afghan fandom. Like maybe 70% of the Afghan fandom prefers Gun, which is okay. There will always be favorites. I find that unfortunate that it doesn't align with my particular opinion, but that's fine. And I never want my praise of or me calling out him being very much overlooked as an actor, as a person, to be seen as me criticizing Gunn, because I do love Gunn very much. I really love him very much. But I think you can prop up another actor and give him his flowers that he very rarely receives without pushing down his other half of the pairing, which is what I'm hoping to do here. And the thing with Gunn is that has been very, very adamant from like forever that he doesn't want to have any other BL pairings with any other guy. So he's never kissed that guy on screen. He's had like a lot of shippy moments in his straight shows, but otherwise, he's had no other kiss scenes with the guy, sex scene with the guy, like no kind of like truly romantic or sexual scene with another guy. And that is on purpose. That is something that he stated he wants to do. I personally love very much. I do think this is one of the aspects that don't agree with the choice that he's made, because I think he's closing down doors, and it has participated in him being much less beloved than Gunn, because Gunn in comparison has always been very cuddly with literally every guy at GMMTV. Gunn also is, and again, I don't like commenting on people's bodies or anything that might be seen as me speculating on people's sexualities. I want to say that I will never speculate on someone's sexuality unless they actually make it clear, which wouldn't be speculation then. But Gunn is definitely giving like twink. He's a lot more feminine. And he's very he's a pretty boy. And obviously a lot of people love seeing pretty boys, like especially in the BL fandom where we watch men loving men stories every week. We want to see a pretty boy with hot guys. So obviously there's so many hot guys at GMMTV. Gunn is very cuddly with a lot of them. There's been some scandal of Gunn and Tae kissing on live. I will not go back to that because that was the dumbest scandal ever. But in any case, Gunn, since the beginning of Gunn, so 10 years ago, has always been shipped with so many other guys. He could literally stand next to a guy for 10 seconds and there will be a hashtag of their ghost ship, and it's just not the same with Off. So when I saw that you was gonna be here and it was gonna be a love triangle, I was very hesitating. I have to be honest with that, because I felt like Off was, as always, gonna be kind of the third wheel in a lot of instances. Off is very much the second thought, and to be honest, my fears were kind of confirmed with this show. I feel really bad for Off because I genuinely don't think he gets nearly the praises and the flowers that he deserves. He is an amazing actor. But because he's been paired with someone who's been an actor longer and who usually gets more challenging roles, he never gets any of the praise, like literally any of the praise. And recently Off, reposted on Twitter a fan praising him for his acting, and I thought this was the first time that Off acknowledged the way that he's like very overlooked in the fandom, because that comment was specifically about how like people keep praising Gunn but they never give any attention to Off. And I think that's a very sad thing, because Off is amazing. Obviously he's my favorite actor, and so I was very stressed. I was very stressed that Off would become the third wheel in this show, and I feel like it kind of happened. I also do want to say that I did not really follow most of the discourse online. Like, I was scared. I would have loved to go on Twitter and repost it and posted stuff to make the show trend even more, but I would not adventure on Twitter to see the fandom chip Pim Jira over Kojira in an overwhelming way, because that would have destroyed my mental health at that moment. I would have felt so annoyed. So, I just wanted full transparency that even from the beginning, although I was super excited for this show, I was very scared as to how this love triangle was going to be fair. And there were a lot of speculations before the show aired that it might be a 3 will be free case where it's a polyamorous ship where in 3 will be free they all end up together. And honestly, I would have been excited for that. I would have thought that was cool. But it was clear, I think from the get-go, it wasn't the direction they were going in. So yeah, I was very, very excited. My excitement was through the roof, but at the same time, I still had some reservations. And you're gonna see that almost all of my reservations were confirmed. Now for the synopsis. So the synopsis is very simple and a little bit complicated at the same time. The synopsis follows Jira, who is an artist, but works kind of odd jobs to support himself, and who meets Pim at a burnout bar. The burnout bar is a very important place in the show for people who are burned out, and it pairs two people together at the same table to kind of get to know each other, and that's where he meets Pim, and it's kind of instant connection, instant flirting. But later on in that first episode, Jira will get hired as an escort to an old dude to just have dinner with him in a punk outfit. And the dude kind of forces Jira to eat some raw meat, and Jira can't do it. So he goes crazy. He starts yelling at him like, "You want punk?" Like it's a really funny scene. And that's how he gets noticed by Ka, who was at the restaurant, and ends up running into Ka, getting introduced to him, and Ka invites him to go to his house, which is in a hotel. Jira thinks he's there to have sex with Ka, and he's okay with that because he thinks Ka is hot. That's what we learn in later episodes. But, in the end, Ka is like, no. Even though Ka puts himself naked completely in front of Jira, he's like, "I want to hire you to play Mr. K." Jira says, "Who is Mr. K?" And Ka says, "That's me. You're gonna play me when I go out into the outside." This is a basic synopsis, but the major themes of the show are finding a job when you are a creative person, are being burnt out at a difficult job, are the threats of AI on art, are falling in love with someone with complete opposite values, and who to choose between a good guy who doesn't excite you and a bad guy that stimulates you. But the core topic of the show, the core question of the show that the show poses is, and through that love triangle, is, can you fall in love and sustain a relationship with someone with core opposite values to you? And spoiler alert, this show is not gonna answer that question. And I couldn't really have imagined an answer to it either, because personally, I would not fall in love. And even if I did, I would not pursue a long-term serious relationship with someone with opposite core values to me, because my values are the things that I hold the most near and dear to my heart. My values, which are all, by the way, leftist values, which is about empathy, about acceptance for all, about equality, and about how capitalism does not define humanity. So I could not be with someone who thinks the exact opposite as me. Let's get onto the characters. So for the characters, we have the main character, Jira. Jira is definitely the most relatable character, in my opinion. He is an artist who cannot seem to find anyone to his art. He is very much unable to find any kind of stability, and has kind of survived this long with the goodwill of his best friend Ink, who we'll talk about, because I have some things to say about Ink. Jira, I find him really fun of a character. He's extremely relatable, especially in the first 2 episodes when he cries about not being able to find a job or not finding his way. It was intensely relatable to me because I had been feeling that way while watching the show as well. So I was kind of like, oh, damn, that hits straight to my heart. But Jira is also very visibly queer. He's the first he's the first Gun Atapan's character in an Afghan BL to be visibly queer, to use queer slang, to be like clearly probably gay, but I'll say queer man, very visibly, and that shows in his wardrobe. And I think that Jira is very fun, very sassy. He's not afraid to bite back, but Jira is also quite desperate, because he is in debt at the beginning of the show, so much so that he has to ask money from his best friend Ing, and then he becomes indebted to her. We also, this show is very short, it's only 10 episodes, and we also don't really see any of the people's families. Caught a little bit at the end of the show. I would argue too late. We'll talk about that in the writing. But, Jira, we don't see his family, so we don't know. Like, we know they're not helping him, so we would think they are estranged. Then we have Ko, who is a capitalist. He used to be the son of very, like, kind people who owned the clothes factory, but the clothes factory shut down because they were in debt, and they kept employing everyone. They didn't want to fire their employees. And so, then his dad got sick and died, and, his mom kind of blamed his dad for their ruin and also the dad dying. And so Ka really grew up thinking that you have to be heartless in business in order to survive, which has made him a lot of money. He is really heartless in business. He will take over companies, sell them. He will use AI to rip off other companies. He doesn't give a fuck. But in real life, and I thought that was the interesting part, is that you have the Ka like businessman, but also the Ka in real life is just a normal dude who has a lot of mental health issues, like insomnia, anxiety about going in public. We'll talk about that. I feel like that was not even explored at all. Like, it's something you have to get by knowing the plot in advance or having read the novel, which anyways, and he's also a very tender lover. He's a very normal person, but he will switch a flip when it comes to business. And I like that aspect, and at the same time didn't quite love it, because sometimes it felt a little bit jarring, especially towards the end of the show, where we'll talk about that. Then we have Pim. Pim is Ko's supposed best friend. We'll talk about that as well. Pim is a very charming, flirty guy, very confident, very much of a player. We see him sleep with another girl after Jira rejects him later in the show. He is very much, I would say, overconfident, but also burnt out with his work with Ka, because Ka is very demanding and kind of treats him as his like servant. So they don't have the most healthy friendship, which we'll talk about. And Pim is also a very insecure person, I would say, in terms of mental health, mental illness especially. He's more of a red flag than Ka, because he's hyper dependent on someone. So in the show they say that he used to be attached to Ka, forgive everything Ka did, and just keep like working for him, helping him. But then he meets Jira and he becomes super attached to Jira, and to the point that he gets an art tattoo for Jira. And when I saw that, for me, I got the biggest ick ever. And the fact of the matter is, I did like Pim until then. That's when Pim lost me, I'm gonna be honest, because I was kind of like, why would you get a permanent fucking tattoo on your body for a man that clearly isn't that interested in you? So Pim is, I would say, very interesting. I thought that this was gonna be his character arc, which is that he learns to stand on his own. He learns to function on his own without needing to be codependent with anyone or base his worth on someone else. That was unfortunately not the arc that he had, because they made him hang so tightly onto Jira, too much, too long. We'll talk about it in the writing. And he really lost me as a character, and I'm kind of sad about that. So then we have Ink, who is Jira's best friend, and she's literally his like not even sidekick. She is his advice giver, but she is a complete plot device for this show. She doesn't get explored whatsoever, which is such a shame because she's played by Amy Tassarn, whom I love, who's an amazing actress. And I feel like, honestly, this role was beneath her. I'm going to be honest. One of my least favorite aspects in Not Me is that the girls are the least developed by far. And low-key, the girls in Not Me, so Eugene and Namo, get more developed. And they were the least developed of that whole show. But at least they had interests. We know kind of the pathway that they're taking at the end of the show. Ink, we literally know nothing about, except that she's a curator and she's a great friend. Like, too nice of a friend, honestly. Because I could not lend that much money to my friend, even if I wanted to. But I was really annoyed to see that the only female character in this show serves no purpose, has no agency, has no storyline of her own. And I know it's a very short show. I know even with the time they had, they couldn't even develop the three main characters equally and as well as each other. So for me, it's kind of upsetting. I kind of hate seeing women, being there to prop up the male characters. It bothers me and it will forever bother me. And I was kind of upset about Ink. I know it was gonna be like that since the first mock trailer. And I was hoping they would add something to Ink when the show aired. But honestly, I was really disappointed in the character of Ink. I think they could have done so much more to her. Then we have Mawin. So Mawin is also the best friend of Pim. And you will see it's kind of poses a problem because Ka is supposed to be Pim's best friend, but we see Pim and Mawin be best friends so much more than Ka and Pim seem to be. And so Mawin is he's kind of the over the top character in the show, kind of the comedic relief. I felt like sometimes it worked, most of the time it didn't, because tonally all the other characters are very serious. And then we have Mawin, who's like kind of over the top a little bit too much. I felt like, and I love AJ Shayapon, by the way, but I thought that it could have been better, definitely. But Mawin is still in my opinion, the second most relatable character after Jira. He loses his job because of Ka, and he is very supportive as a friend. I do like his relationship with Pim. And I think that he was a fun character, even though, again, tonally, sometimes he did kind of throw me off, in my opinion. And last character, which is not a character, that's not a character. I don't even know why they bothered Tortinapan with this shit. We have Ben, who is the owner and bartender at the Burnout Bar. We know nothing. Quite literally nothing about the man, except that he knows all the tea of all the characters, because all the characters end up in that bar at least once or twice in that show. But also, he seems to take kind of pleasure in the drama and all of that stuff. He seems to be kind of judging people, and that's all we know. And he's hot. But that's literally all we know about Ben. And honestly, I thought he could have been developed as well. I feel like let's get on to the cast and acting. So the cast and acting, one of my biggest indications, I think, that should have really warned me, and it kind of did, but I was kind of burying my head in the sand, and I have talked about it before, is that GMMTV nowadays is producing way too many shows to have the budget and the time to develop them all equally as well. Meaning that a lot of the shows nowadays, if you look, they all have a 6-people cast. Like, look, there's multiple shows like that where 6 people cast. A recent show that aired was That Summer. That Summer, Winnie, Satang, Mon, Ryu, Neo, Min. That's 6 people. And it's again always shows that are kind of self-contained. 10 episodes, very shorter. and you can tell the budget isn't there. And I talked about it in other episodes, especially the locations. You can see that the number of the locations where the shows take place, where the scenes take place, have really dwindled from 3 years ago to now at GMMTV, because they are producing too many shows, because they have to give each ship an individual show. So it's just too much. It's just too much for them. They don't have the money for it anymore. And so in my opinion, the cast, being only 6 people here, worked because this show is very self-contained. To be honest, they could have been even less people. We didn't need Tortina Pan to be Ben. Ben could have been played by anyone and he's not really important at all, you know. And Ink could have been played by anyone too. I think she's a more important character in terms of the plot, because she does move the plot forward, and she serves as like Jira's like compass, and especially moral compass, although he very rarely listens to her. But obviously I love everyone in the cast. Frankly, the one I like the least in the cast is Dew, and I still like him just fine. I just saw him in only one show prior to it, which was Homeschool, and Homeschool was not a good show. I have a full review of it on this channel. And I think that the whole cast was great. I love Emita Sorn. I love Afghan, obviously. I do like Tortina Pan. I love AJ Shayapun. I loved him forever. I was so excited that he was in this show. And so the cast is great. The acting is amazing. The acting is amazing. Of course, we have Ganatapan, who is an amazing actor, one of the best Thai actors. We have Of Jumpun, who I also consider one of the strongest actors at GMMTV, but no one ever gives him his flowers when he's one of the most versatile actors at GMMTV. Like, he's like Singh Harriet. Both of them, they are very versatile actors in a way that most actors at GMMTV cannot be. But anyways, Dew was really good. Dew's acting, I liked his acting more in Burnout than in Homeschool. Really good. Emmy, she's good, but her character didn't have any, like, acting forward scenes. AJ Shayapun, I thought was cute, was charming in here. Maybe again a little bit too over the top, but I think it was just like the directing, because I know that AJ can do more serious roles. And then we have Tortina Pan. Tortina Pan was great, but again, there was no acting forward scene at all for him. So, yeah. And so for me, although I love the cast and I love the acting of this show is definitely a show that is very much carried by its acting, very much carried by its, more so its execution than the depth of what it's talking about, than what it's saying, which in my opinion isn't enough. You guys know that for me the writing is everything, but here I think it was quite synonymous that there was such a restricted cast, in the way that I feel like GMMT did not put much effort or thought in this show. I'm not saying the crew and the cast didn't put effort. I'm saying in general, the production aspect of the show, I don't think they care that much. At least not nearly as much as Not Me. Because Not Me was the densest Thai drama of all time. And it had its budget slashed, it faced censorship. It was supposed to be 16 episodes, but ended up being 14. So it kind of had a rushed ending. And even with all that, Not Me managed to develop all of its characters, which was about 10 characters, have action almost every episode, and develop the best love story, in my opinion, that GMMTV has ever done. So, for me, it does reflect the effort put into it. Now let's get on to the writing. I was at the premiere for Burnout Syndrome, and I absolutely adored the first episode. I thought the first episode was nearly a masterpiece. I thought it was so solid. It communicated the stakes and introduced her to the main 3 characters so well. I thought it was an amazing first episode. Cinematography wise, writing wise, acting wise, I thought it was great. But to be honest, after that, I think the show has a lot of flaws. So before we discuss the flaws, I'm going to discuss the things that I like in the writing. I think this story has so much potential. I also think that the love triangle aspect at the beginning of the show was one of the best love triangles I had seen, in the sense that for once it made sense. What I don't like about love triangles is that oftentimes we already know way in advance with who the person is gonna end up. And of course here we did know as well, because only Afghan are on the official poster of Burnout Syndrome. And we know that like GMFT don't separate their established pairings. So I think the writing of the show has a lot of really good aspects. For example, it's very indie coded, in the sense that there's a lot of silence and time to in between the characters talk, but it never feels awkward or like as if it wasn't planned. Everything feels very much planned, very much written that way. I think the dialogues were good. I like the references to art. If you don't know, I studied museum and gallery management, so I love art so much. It's my favorite thing in the world. And I really liked the references to other paintings, and when they discussed the paintings, the only thing is I wish we would see the paintings that they refer to, because not everyone is gonna Google the paintings, and most of the paintings I already knew, but I still wish we would have seen it on screen so we can know, like, see like Jira's painting versus the inspiration, you know what I mean? But in any case, I love that aspect of the writing. I did like the love story. I thought not even just the love story, but any like romantic / sexual / just love scenes in the show I thought were very convincing. They were written very much a different way than I would say other BLs. It was feeling a lot more queer, indie vibes in the writing, and I thought it was great. It was amazing. In general, I know that Pinucci really excels at filming like sex scenes, queer sex scenes, and I thought here it was the case. I think I liked the writing for what it should have been more than it is, because I can't think of anything else to really praise the writing on. Because to be honest, I do think the writing was the weakest link of the show. And you guys know that I think the writing of a show is the foundations. So if the writing isn't that good, then the foundations of your house are shaky. And your house is gonna fall down. And I feel like it kind of did here. So let's get on to what I didn't like, because there's so much more. So first, I didn't like Pim's role in the show. Pim, I again thought that his character arc would be to learn to be his own person without being codependent. I think it's not only an interesting character to explore, because there's not that many that we've seen in Thai dramas, but also I think it's something that a lot of people could learn from, because a lot of people cannot be single, for example. A lot of people cannot be alone. I think it's a very common thing to feel these days, and I think it would have been great to explore Pim coming into himself and standing on his own as a great guy and not needing the validation of Jira or Ko or another new person. But the fact that Pim spends the second half of the show just crying, begging, being angry at Jira, and just going between these three feelings on and on and on and on for 5 episodes. Well, again, Ko and Jira's relationship isn't being that developed for most of the show. I thought was really repetitive. I thought was really annoying, to be honest. And really took me from me thinking this was going to be a really good love triangle at the beginning of the show to me hating this love triangle. I think this show did Pim very wrong, because Pim never has any, we know he gets a new job and maybe reconciles with Ko, and we're going to get to that. But I genuinely think the show treated Pim like the center of the show. We spend so much more time with Pim than we spend with Ko, who is the actual love interest and who is much more complex, much more mysterious than Pim. But we spend so much time with Pim, but it's the same thing over and over and over again. And I understand grieving a relationship that you thought was gonna save you and make everything better, but this was too long. This was too repetitive. Before I forget, the friendship between Ko and Pim. The friendship between Ko and Pim is supposed to be a kind of toxic friendship, but that has been together for like over 20 years. Pim knew Ko's parents, where he lived, his past. He knows that Ko used to be a normal guy without insomnia problem, without anxiety problems, without being a crazy AI capitalist, okay? And they end up breaking their friendship, not over the fact that Ko is very domineering and treats Pim badly, okay? But because of Jira, because of a guy. And in the last episode, I have to bring this up because this was when, to be honest, I went to the premiere of Burnout Syndrome. I didn't go to the last final ep fan meet because first of all, the benefits in the premiere, it was only with Afghan, and I only care about Afghan. And then in the final ep, it was gonna be with you, and no shade to you, but I don't care about him like that. And also, I knew I would not enjoy this episode, and I had already paid for a final ep fan meet for the trainee, which the thing with the trainee is I thought this show was gonna be great until the end, and then while I was watching with Afghan in the same room as Afghan, watching the last episode of the trainee, during the whole episode I started realizing, they are ruining the character of Jane and they are ruining the show in the last episode. But here, it started before the last episode. So I knew that I would not enjoy this episode, most likely, and turns out I was right. And so I stayed home and I took 2 hours to watch this episode because I kept pausing and being upset and yelling at my screen. And I'm really sad to declare that, but I was kind of over it. And the thing about me is, it's very easy for me to get emotionally attached. But once you kind of emotionally lose me, it's really, really hard to care. And Burnout Syndrome kind of did that to me. My least favorite scene of the whole show, and in the final episode from yesterday, is Ko and Pim fighting like fucking idiots in front of the Burnout bar, in front of Jira, in front of Ink, in front of Mawin, and even in front of Ben. Fighting like little kids as if these characters are not almost 30. This felt so, first of all, out of character. Second of all, childish. For a show that is very mature, much more mature than most GMMTV shows, considering they have of Junpon being naked for most of the show, okay? I felt so pissed off at that scene. I genuinely think that, and it pains me, and it's not just the case of Burnout Syndrome, a lot of shows do not know how to portray friendship, especially romance-focused shows, like BLGL or other romance-focused type dramas, do not know how to portray friendship the way that friendship is. As a friendship girly, I will always think friendship is more important than romantic love. I love my girls. I love my girls. I could have the shittiest day and I will see my girls and I will feel so much better. And I hope that they feel better when they see me. But here, I felt like the friendship. So, Ing is the kind of plot device for Jira to move Jira forward and his career forward. And Mawin is kind of the plot device to move Pim forward to kind of move on from Jira. Ko obviously doesn't have any friends because Ko is a loner, which again creates also an imbalance where we barely see Ko as it is and we never see him confiding in anyone except for like the second episode when we see him with his therapist, and I don't think he's confiding that much. He just wants his fucking medication, you know, to sleep. So I thought that this show could have only truly worked if the friendship between Ko and Pim actually was something that we as viewer cared about. The way that you make us care is that you show that despite this friendship having become toxic, it used to not be a toxic friendship. Maybe show us flashbacks. We learn that they used to compete over everything back in the past. Show me Pim and Ko as kids, fighting on the playground or competing at that and this. Show us the dynamic so we really understand it. The dynamic is barely brushed. Ko and Pim are on screen together a total of maybe 5 times, and it's always very short scenes. And I genuinely think that we should have cared so much. We should have seen that why they're friends. Because at that point, it feels like a friendship of duty on Pim's part, and for Ko, he doesn't seem like he cares about Pim that much. When Pim quits the company and disappears, Ko doesn't seem to be giving a fuck when it's his only friend left on this earth, okay? So I thought this was definitely one of the weak points of the plot, and it weakened the characters of Ko and Pim, because I think that if they were really best friends, then them fighting over Jira would have felt a lot more deep and made us feel more as viewers. But here I felt nothing. I was like, okay, stop being friends, quit the company, whatever. Like, I don't care about this friendship at all. Now for Ko is so incredibly underdeveloped in the show, and it's the greatest flaw of the whole show. Why is that? Because Ko is already a difficult person to love. Okay? He's already a very mysterious character with a lot of mental illness problems. Okay? He can't sleep at night, and he has like so much anxiety outside, he can faint if he's in a crowd. This also should have been explored, because we never really understand that he has anxiety until he kind of faints at the club with Jira, because he forced himself to go there. And we're like, but it's kind of treated as a joke, and it's like, we didn't really see him have any symptoms of anxiety. Like, what's happening? We don't really know. I'm kind of sure that people who just watch Burnout Syndrome like for shits and giggles and didn't like know shit about the show, didn't even understand that like Ko wears the glasses all the time because he's scared of people, but he still gets anxieties in like big crowds of people. I think we should have had at the very least, another therapy scene where the therapist is asking him, so what about your anxiety when you're outside with people? And so we can really understand, and Ko like describing one time where he fainted because of it. So we can understand that this is a pathology. You know what I mean? So for me, I thought that on that aspect, like the mental illness aspect, Ko is not developed at all. On the like past childhood trauma, Ko is not developed at all. And when he gets developed, it's in episode 9. It's in episode 9 of the show, of a 10 episode show. He's the fucking male lead of that show. I genuinely think, and the reason why I kind of knew that Burnout Syndrome would let me down, and I'm being mostly negative in this review, because, again, I think this show had so much potential. I think it could have been such a powerful show about love, about politics, about AI, about art, and I feel like it kind of dropped every topic except the art, I would say, and the chemistry part, like on its head. And so for Ko, I think we really needed to see him, more of his background from the get-go, so we can understand why he's like this. And to be honest, his background, in my opinion, does not justify him being a horrible AI capitalist. Because the fact of the matter is, we all have trauma. We all have had to face really hard shit in our life, some more than others. And there's people who have really lived through unspeakable trauma, and they didn't turn out to be like Ko, heartless, firing whole departments at his company without feeling bad about it, taking the art of my lover and feeding it to an AI program to replicate it. So in my opinion, that whole premise in itself is kind of already wrong. You know what I mean? I feel like they should have given us another excuse as to why Ko is like that. But in any case, I think they also should have made Ko change so much more early. Like maybe spend the first 5 episodes of the show really headbent on being like the way he is and slowly changing, because then this way, the end of the show where Jira comes back to basically beg him to be back together, even though Ko didn't chase him and didn't fucking change at all. He just sold his AI company. Who's is to tell you he's not gonna start another one next year? I'm gonna come back. So I thought that Ko was a very interesting character. He was my favorite character of the show because I love of Jumpun, but he also infuriated me because he deserved so much more. And there was again, I told you guys, I didn't follow the fandom part of this show at all because I knew it would upset me. But I did know, like one of my followers did let me know that the head, like screenwriter for this show literally put on Twitter that, like he, related more to Pim, so that's why he wrote more scenes for Pim and put more effort into Pim and kind of changed like a lot of the elements from the novel that explained why Ko is like this to barely any development. Like until episode 8-9, we do not know Ko at all. We know him from one scene where he told Jira about his trauma because his parents used to be too nice and the company failed, and that's it. And that's not enough for us to truly root for him. The reason why I rooted for Ko and Jira is not because I think they are like soulmates or a match made in heaven. It's just because I'm an Afghan fan. And I think the chemistry was amazing, and I think the acting together was amazing, and they look amazing together. Okay, let me say that. But I didn't root for them, and I did not believe 1 second at the end of the show that Ko and Jira were gonna end up together forever. Literally, at the end, when they get back together, it's like putting a plaster on an open wound. Like, it's not gonna work, babe. Like, it's not gonna work. So that was for Ko. I think Ko deserved the most development out of everyone, because the thing with Pim and with Jira is that they're characters who wear their hearts on their sleeve. Right? But Ko doesn't. So he deserves more development, especially since he's the hardest to love out of everyone, because we suppose that his values are not just opposite to Jira's, but also opposite to most of the viewers of the show. So, and then we also have Jira. Jira, I loved him most of the show, but I also thought he was really wishy-washy at times. And that's another aspect of love triangles that I really dislike, is that the person being pursued by the two people is almost always wishy-washy and does something wrong in the process. And here, Jira did really lead Pim on, and it was not okay, because it was clear from very early on that Pim was so much more attached in, again, mental illness way. Like, Pim is not okay mentally. He's sick in the head, to be honest. Like, he scares me a little bit. Like, he's giving stalker vibes. I'm not gonna lie. But I genuinely felt like it was so obvious that the attachment that Pim had for Jira was not healthy, and Jira could feel it, but he kept being washy-washy again and again and again. In that way, it became also very repetitive, in the same way that Pim hanging onto Jira and being like a pathetic kind of loser, was in like both aspects of like Jira being like, but I don't know which one I like, and Pim also being like, please Jira, don't leave me, for 5 episodes straight. Both aspects, in my opinion, are two of the ones where you should have reread your script and saw that there were way too many scenes that resembled each other. And just, again, for such a small show with very few scenes, very, not that much action going on, you need to really choose the scenes that matter. And for Pim, in the case of Pim, like crying over Jira, there were maybe 10 or like even 15 scenes. Some of them are different enough. They should have reduced it from like 10, 15 to 5 max. For Jira saying, I don't know, there are maybe 5 or 6 scenes. You reduce it to 1 or 2. That's it. And spend the extra screen time on developing Ka. So overall, I also thought the whole AI stuff was, like, in the first episode, it was so well done. And then it was kind of like not that mentioned for the rest of the show until episode 9. And I was kind of like, I feel like this should have been brought up like every episode. And I felt like also the way this was brought up was very surface level, in the sense that it's like, yeah, AI can replicate art. And Jira is like, no, but art is made by humans. And that was kind of the only thing they said about AI again and again and again. But the thing of the matter is I don't want the show to just bring up like topics that are wrong, like AI is bad for humanity. Yeah. Most people know that, or at least most people like know that, even if they don't really believe in that, but most people know that. The thing when you bring these kinds of topic on, you have to kind of add something to it. And I felt like here they stayed very surface level with the AI, but it was kind of unsatisfying. And the fact of the matter is not just the AI part, it's literally every single aspect. They stayed surface level with Jira. They stayed surface level with Pim. They stayed surface level, especially with Ka. Ka didn't change from episode 1 to episode 10, except that he fell in love with Jira. Jira didn't change apart from he got a little bit more confident in his art. Okay. He changed the most of all the characters for sure. But also he fell in love with Ka. Then we have Pim, who didn't quite change. If not, I think he changed for the worse. He became even more mentally ill. Unwell. Okay. So I felt like there were very few changes in the show. And it was it's been a criticism that I've given to a lot of other GMM TV shows. I mentioned That Summer earlier. That Summer was that where I felt like now we're just coasting by, but this show had so much stakes. We're talking about the biggest topic in our society these days, with like probably the Epstein list, which is AI. We've been talking about AI nonstop for the past 2-3 years. And we'll probably continue to do so because AI has so many ethical, environmental, issues. It is a big deal. And so I thought if you want to tackle this in the art scene, which is a very big topic that AI is always being criticized in, like, it has to be so much more the focus. And ultimately, I think that was my issue. Like, even, like, everything was very contained. And I felt like apart from the love triangle part, love story part, which did run its course, I felt like the rest of the show was very empty, unfortunately. And that was part of what I really didn't like in the writing, because I think that the plot was simple enough, following only 3 characters. Like, again, we've had Not Me that followed 10 characters, that had so much actions, plot twist. Like, it was a crazy show. And I was not asking Burnout Syndrome to do all that, okay? It was a different show. But I feel like the least they could have done is develop the AI art topic, because it's the crux of their show, so much more, to have to develop their 3 characters equally, if not Ka more than anyone else, because he is the hardest one to love and the most difficult one to root for. And also, I genuinely think the biggest failure of the writing is that they cannot answer the question that we saw at the beginning, which was, can you fall in love and build a serious relationship with someone with core opposite values? And this show from when this show was announced, I always wondered how this show would answer this question. Because the truth of the matter is I genuinely do not believe in any universe that you can build a serious, loving relationship with someone with opposite core values to you. So, especially why? Because values reflect so much more than that, right? Values reflect your empathy, what you value most in the world. Do you value money or community? Do you value being on top or being empathetic? Do you value consuming freely or being more in touch with our planet Earth? All of these core values are things that you cannot compromise on. Jira believing in human art is something, if we were to compromise on, it would mean he has entirely forgotten himself. It would be the most awful, toxic thing for him to do. And you will have seen, maybe if you're online or whatever, that there's a lot of, and it is, I'm gonna bring politics into it, baby. It's always about right versus left. But we see a lot of people right-leaning, even sometimes like far right-leaning, being okay and sometimes even seeking relationship with the people that they want to oppress or leftists. So you can see some far-right guys that are on the down low and they be fucking guys. But even then, there's some far-right guys who are fucking racist and they want to fuck black women. We always see right, but even if we get rid of the far right, we always see right-leaning people be okay to be with someone who disagrees with them politically, but we never see leftists wanting to be okay with that. Why is that? Because the fact of the matter is we live in a right, not just right-leaning world, a right-wing world, if not a far right-wing world. Meaning that if the leftist person agrees to be in a romantic relationship with someone on the right, they are completely compromising their values, but the person on the right doesn't have to, because their values are already represented everywhere in this capitalistic world. So the one losing will always be the leftist. And it's the same in the case of Kojira, who I do love. I do like this pairing. I thought they had so many fun aspects. The banter was amazing. I thought the dialogues were fun. I thought the chemistry was beyond. Like, they were really beautiful ship, okay? And I thought they were very interesting. The pairing of a very AI capitalist with an artist, very interesting. However, the one losing in this relationship is Jira. He's losing his core values. But Ko didn't lose anything, didn't even apologize, didn't even go beg for him back. So, in my opinion, the way this ended was so disappointing. They did not answer the question that they chose to pose. We didn't ask them to create a story about an AI capitalist falling for an artist, and vice versa. They did. So you need to have a satisfying ending. This was not satisfying. Having them just get back together a year later because supposedly like water under the bridge. No. Should have shown some change. Should have said, I will never mess with AI again. Now I'm rich beyond words. I just want to be a normal person. Let's be normal people together. I love you, Jira. I'm so sorry that I hurt your trust in that way. Because taking his artwork to feed to AI when it's so clear that Jira hates AI is the biggest breach of trust ever. You know what I mean? So I generally think that the writing was so surface level. There's so many things they didn't even either think about or want to think about. And I feel very sad. I would really love if the novel got translated in English so I can read it, because I want to see the original novel. What was the vision when Ka is actually more developed than this? Because here I genuinely I think one of the biggest criticism I can give to show, and I give it to a lot of shows, by the way, Burnout Syndrome is not unique, and especially for GMMTV shows. Like lately, the GMMTV shows have been so surface level, it's shocking. But here I feel really bad because it's clear that there was a level of care put into the show, but I feel like the writing was where no one was here. Like no one cared. Like it's insane. And I genuinely feel that it is disrespectful. I don't really see any other established BL pairings at GMMTV being okay with one of them, in this case of Burnout Syndrome, of Jumpun, being treated so poorly, where he not only became the third wheel in his own pairing and accepted it very graciously, alright, but also at the same time, he also didn't even get, like, his character didn't even get developed enough, and he got the least development of the whole show. I feel like that's so rude. So let's move on from the writing. I'm sure I'm forgetting 50 other elements, but I think the writing was definitely the biggest weakness of this show, and it makes me so sad because I think this show really had so much potential to be like real, to be very realistic. I think the first episode I really liked it for being so realistic. I didn't feel like I was watching a drama with characters withdrawn from me. I felt like I could really understand Jira's pain and Jira's tears and Jira's worries. And I feel like the show strayed away from that the more it went on. But that fight scene outside of Burnout Bar will forever be one of the worst scenes ever. Like, I genuinely hate it. I think it's the dumbest scene ever. Oh, one scene I do want to mention. I do have to mention that. For Pim also, I really hated the scene in episode, I believe, 8 or 9, where he imagines Jira during an audition where he's helping his friend Mawin. I hated that scene so much because it's not just because it's a kiss scene. I thought the kiss was totally unnecessary and low-key a little bit like, it gave me the ick. I didn't like it at all. But I felt like it had already been established like 3 episodes earlier that Jira doesn't like Pim that way. Like, it felt so redundant. But this scene in particular, what really pissed me off the most is I thought it was really interesting. I thought the acting was solid. But it felt again so redundant, and I wish it would have happened maybe earlier, before Jira rejected him completely. I understood that scene was Pim kind of saying goodbye to Jira, but I thought that in putting it in that episode was really like, in French we say un cheveu sur la soupe, like literally a hair in your soup. Because literally I felt like that was so random, and that scene really, really pissed me off. I thought it was really stupid to put it there. Again, the scenes of Pim being like all sad about Jira were so annoying in the end, like really, really annoying. Next we have the cinematography. Yes, I'm finally done with that writing. Even though I forgot probably like 50 things I wanted to talk about that writing. The cinematography was brilliant. The cinematography was amazing. This show has a very strong aesthetic. It's very beautiful. There's some interesting shots. I especially loved the use of close-up shots, especially for the character of Ka, who is, again, almost always wearing sunglasses, who is very withdrawn, very mysterious. I love when we see a close-up shot of his face to see his expression. I thought it was a great way to let us in on a very secretive character like Ka. I thought the cinematography was perfect. It was miles, leagues above the other shows at GMMTV. And it was definitely one of the best aspects of the show. This show was a feast for the eyes. I love the elements with the flowers. I love the painting shots, the art shot. I don't know when I'm gonna mention the art. The art is definitely also the best part of the show. I loved every artwork present in the show. I really loved, the artist even like giving us some behind the scenes on social media. I loved the art in the show. I thought it fit Jira so much. It was so well, like the artist was chosen so perfectly for this series. I genuinely, adored every single scenes, like Sven's painting, the cinematography is beyond beautiful. It's definitely one of the best out of GMMTV in years, and it's not enough, unfortunately, again, to compensate the writing, because for me the writing is so key to everything. But the cinematography definitely is one of my favorite aspects of the show. It's beyond gorgeous. Then we have the pace, and honestly, the pace is not that good. I thought the pace of the show, the first 5 episodes, is good. The second half, I think, again, because we have so many repetitive scenes of Pim being depressed about Jira, or begging Jira, or being angry at Jira, it becomes really repetitive, and that is, again, before we have had any, showing that Ko and Jira like each other. Like, they still haven't told each other they like each other. They still haven't, like, had a real makeout scene or sex scene. And so it's really, in terms of pace, it's really throwing us off, because, again, Ko and Jira are already a hard couple to root for because of their completely opposite values. But then we only have them for 2 episodes. Not even for 1 episode, and then they break up and they get back to each other in the very last part of the last episode. Come on. Like, when I spell it out this way, it just feels so... The pace was really jarring, I think. Because this show is quite slow. It's very indie. It has a lot of indie vibes, which I really enjoyed. So it is quite slow in many aspects, in the sense that it really, values taking its time, but especially for the cinematography and stuff. But at the same time, it didn't, again, develop anything as deeply as it should have. And then also, at the end, it's very rushed. So in my opinion, the pace was good in the first half, but the second half was a mess. Like, a mess. Next, we have the ships and chemistry. So the ships, we have only 2 ships. We have Ko-Jira and Pim-Jira. So both ships had really good chemistry, very different chemistry. So let's start with the main ship, Ko-Jira. I thought Ko-Jira, I said I really love their banter, the way they kind of push and pull each other. I thought it was really well done. I really realized that this is a trope in pairings that I really love, like the push and pull. And I thought that they worked together in terms of chemistry so well. Like, they had perhaps the most chemistry that Afghan have ever had together. Like, they were electric together. And I love them so much. But it's more so on paper than in real life, because in real life, again, at the end of the show, the actual show, if I'm not going, like, in my head canon and creating an alternate, like, ending, in the actual show that happened, I generally don't think they're gonna last more than a year. Like, they're not, like, there was no change operated for them to end up together. And now for Pim-Jira, I obviously didn't like them. Like, obviously I'm an Afghan girly. But I also think that Pim was really annoying and really not meant to be with Jira. It made me laugh because I just saw a video of, like, Afghan and Jew at the, final ep fan meet. And literally they had to describe their character in 1 word. And the word Jew chose was, "It's enough! It's enough!" Like, literally, stop it. Stop running after Jira. And I was like, yes, thank you. You get it. Like, so the chemistry was good. It's a different kind of chemistry. It was more hesitant, I would say. I did also want to say, I completely forgot, even though I think it's a very important part of it, is I think the reason that people were so excited about Gun and Dew, and by the way, I do want to say, like, I completely understand being a Dew fan and being excited for him to do a queer role, because it's clear that Dew doesn't want to be in a BL. He wants to be in a bromance, which he has just, like, debuted with T, which, if you want to know my opinion, I don't like bromance ships. I do like Sky Rongravi. I liked him long before he even joined GMMTV, but I've never watched anything by Sky Nani, and I don't plan on it, and I will not watch anything by Duty, because I think bromance is quite performative and quite honestly, I feel a little homophobic in nature, because the fact of the matter is every Sky Nanny and every Duty fan wants them to kiss. So there are gay undertones, but that will never be confirmed. And I really hate that. I think it's low-key homophobic, low-key, fetishizing, and low-key performative, and I don't like it. But in any case, if I was a Jew fan, I would definitely be super excited that he gets to be, especially with such a great actor like Gunn. They've also been in 2 other shows together, Homeschool and Leap Day. And also there's a height difference. And I do have to mention the height, because unfortunately, for most people who are attracted to men, they are obsessed with height. And as a tall girly, I never got it, because I'm like, why as a shorter person do you want to be towered by towered over by your partner? And the fact of the matter is that it's the patriarchy. You want to be dominated by your partner, and that's mostly the patriarchy. Like, I'm sorry, you're perpetuating dumb fucking standard, and the fact of the matter, no one can choose their height. And I'm saying that my parents have a big height difference, but my dad, before dating my dad, who's the tall one, before dating my mom only dated taller women. So he just fell for my mom, and she happened to be a petite lady, okay? So genuinely, it has always icked me out, because the fact of the matter is, I will never be a tiny little girl next to my partner. Even if I'm in a straight relationship, I will never be that. I'm a big girl. I'm a tall, big girl. And in my opinion, I find it weird that you need your partner to be able to overpower you. Your partner, honestly, is that a turn on for you guys? That like your partner can end your fucking life at any time because they're so much taller and bigger than you? Because for me, that freaks me out. You know what I mean? But to each their own. It's the patriarchy though. So you have like, if you are someone who is obsessed with super tall men, because it's always tall men. It's never tall women. It's very rarely tall women. Unless you're a queer woman. I'm remembering the case of that like basketball girl who was so tall and abused all of her girlfriends. And I think she also had benefited from like people being obsessed with her height. Just let it go. You don't need to have a big height difference in your relationship. It's gonna be fun. You're gonna survive. You need to be equal to your partner, not to be towered over, not to be dominated physically. Like, it's gonna be okay. Am I talking out my ass? Like, I feel like this should be basic, like, opinions. But in terms of the height of Dew is really, really tall, and got famous off of F4 Thailand. Personally, I don't really stan actors who get famous off of one role. I think you have to prove it to me so I can like you. But I think the height difference between Dew and Gunn, which is very, very dramatic. And it was the same for like Dew and Joss Whedon. People loved, not Dew and Joss Whedon, sorry, Gunn and Joss Whedon. People loved the Joss Gunn, like Ghost Ship, because they have such a big, height difference. Even though often already have a quite big height difference. But anyways, I feel like this is dumb. And honestly, this is what was one of my worries, is I'm like, when there is a big, tall man involved, most people who are attracted to men lose all sense of logic. And that's why I was also annoyed at that love triangle, because I was like, people are so obsessed with tall men that they are not even gonna give Off's character a chance. And Off's character is the hard one to love on top of that. So, in my opinion, Pinjara were fine, but at the end of the day, I kind of skipped their scenes. They were pissing me off, especially Pim pissed me off. I thought they didn't look that good together. I have to be honest. Anyways, let's move on. Next, the music. The music, another really good aspects to the show. The music in this show is so freaking good. It's literally bob after bob, and it kind of reminds me of the Not Me music, and it's clear that Pinucci can choose the best songs possible for a show and make them stand out so much, and I adore literally every song in Not Me. I thought the song placements, like the song choices were also perfect. So it's again, for me, like, that's what's frustrating, is there's so many aspects of this show that for me were perfect, like the acting, like the cinematography, like the chemistry, like the music. And next we also have costume design. But then the other elements that were not perfect and were actually very imperfect are the ones that, in my opinion, carry the show more. You know what I mean? So next, for the costume design, I thought the costume design was really, really good. I loved Jira's wardrobe. It was so cunty. Again, it really participated in Jira being very visibly LGBT, very visibly more of a femme guy. And I loved all of his outfits. For Ka, I liked his graphic t-shirts. I think it was interesting to have a character who doesn't rely on his wardrobe to make us pass like feelings or different situations, because Ka is either naked or in like graphic t-shirts. So I did like that. Pim was fine. I did like the outfits of Ink. And Mawin sometimes, I think. And Ben was really hot, like very much mysterious bar owner. So I would say the costume design was really good. Next, we have the rewatchability. I think I will rewatch this show, actually, but I will rewatch it. I will do a Kojira only cut. I will never rewatch Pim Jira. I think they were quite dreadful, I'm gonna be honest. Especially Pim in the second half of the show, and I will skip like anything else but the like more romantic moments between Kojira, which means that like that rewatch will be 30 minutes because it's really not that many scenes. But I will never, I think, rewatch the entire show without skipping ahead. I don't think that's possible for me. Yeah. Next, my enjoyment out of 5 stars. I will give this show a 4 stars. I was gonna give it a 3. The thing is, if I judge the first half of the show, I would actually give it a 5 stars. I loved the first half of the show. And then the second half, I would give it a 3 stars, if not a 2 stars at time. So I'll give it a 3.5 stars. This is actually the lowest rating I've given on my enjoyment, and it's for an Afghan show. It's making me sick right now. Okay, sick! But it's the truth. It's a 3.5. I think also another aspect that I don't love about love triangles is when the main character spends half the time with another guy that you don't really like and you think is mentally ill, and you know they're not even gonna end together. For me, you know, I found like people putting energy into Pim Jira a little bit weird, because we knew they would never end up together. So at this point, you're just setting yourself up to be disappointed and heartbroken. But you do you, bestie. You do you. Okay. So they were really scenes of this show that I enjoyed tremendously, and that I think are gonna stay in my mind for a very long time. But unfortunately, it's only a few scenes. I'll just say that. Next, we have my rating, and we're almost done. This has been so long. My back hurts. I gave this show an 8 out of 10. And I think it's mostly because of, as I said, all the like flourishes. So the acting and the cinematography, the chemistry, the music, the costume design, and even I think the characters were very distinct and had distinct stories, personalities. I thought the characters in themselves were really interesting and would have deserved to be so much more. But I think I gave an 8 out of 10 because I don't see myself ever giving an Afghan show, a 7.5. It would break my heart, okay? And I also think it's in big parts because I think the potential this show had was so great. Like, this show could have been so good, but I think it should have been 12 episodes. I think it should not have focused as much as it did on the love triangle, but should have focused more on that idea of, can you fall in love with someone with core values opposite to you? So yeah, that's an 8 out of 10, but like barely, to be honest. And that breaks my heart. and I'm gonna have to deal with that. And that's why I wanted to put all of my feelings out today and kind of try and move on and maybe revisit this show in a few months. Because again, I think this show has a lot of good, but I just wish it would have been treated with more care and attention and fairness. And lastly, who would like this show? The artsy gays, of course. I would say the queer aspects of this show is so wonderful. I would also say that like the art is again so good. And I think it was very much giving indie queer movie, which is what's like Pinucci's work always gives a little bit. And I love, okay. And I really think this show was not for everyone. And that's why it's one of the rare cases at GMMTV where the show started trending quite a bit and kind of the trending went down every week because I think it kind of bled viewers because this show is kind of an acquired taste. It's slower, it's more contemplative, more indie, and it's not a regular BL. For me, it's something that I really enjoyed, and it's what had me excited about the show in the first place. But I understand that not everyone will like it. So who would like this show again? The indie gays, the artsy gays, and I would say that's kind of it. But overall, to conclude, I feel really sad that Burnout Syndrome didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to. I'm still glad this show exists. I think it's a show that honestly would benefit from eventually having a remake in like 10 years. I think this show touched on a lot of important topics in today's society. And I just wish that things would have been less surface level and more developed, especially for the characters, the romance to actually stick. Because unfortunately, I don't think these characters and this pairing of Kojira will stick with me forever and ever, just because in my opinion, they were not developed enough. So yeah, I'm kind of sad to have to give this review because I was already seeing myself like give an amazing review and be like, this is the best show ever and go watch it. And I would still recommend you watch it. I think there's a lot of amazing elements. And again, the direction of the show is so good. The execution of the show is good. The writing is just not it. The writing really is its Achilles heel. And as you know, the writing for me is everything. It's the foundation. So unfortunately, you cannot cover up shaky foundations. But yeah, I would love to know what you thought about this show. I still enjoyed it, and I'm still glad that Afghan did challenging roles like these. I think the acting was amazing, especially in the last episode. I loved seeing Off have more challenging like crying scenes and stuff, because usually like people measure acting only by crying scenes. And I think that it was just a show that was good more in idea than in execution. And yeah, I don't know. I do hope that Afghan's next show, Gunshot, will be better than this, and I will now devote all of my time thinking about Gunshot rather than Burnout Syndrome, because I have thought about Burnout Syndrome for way too long. It has been living in my head rent-free for the 10 weeks it aired, and now I'm ready to move on. So I will see you next week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Bye-bye!